My daughter wrote, "Don't you dare come to my wedding. Tyler is against you. You're a stranger to us." I silently canceled all the checks. The next morning, she was standing on my doorstep. "I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled." 32 years. That's how long I'd been building what I thought was an unbreakable bond with my daughter Sophie. Just the two of us against the world after her daddy left when she was barely out of diapers. 3 years old she was. I remember her asking where daddy went and me trying to explain something I barely understood myself, but we made it work. Boy, oh boy, did we make it work. I picked up every extra shift the hospital would give me. Night shifts, weekends, holidays didn't matter. I was there, scrubbing in, taking care of patients while dreaming about Sophie's future. Every dollar I saved went into her college fund. Every sacrifice was worth it when she graduated top of her class with that business degree. Marketing she specialized in. Got herself a real good position up in Boston, and I was bursting with pride like a balloon ready to pop. My life settled into a comfortable rhythm after that. I had my little cottage in Connecticut, nothing fancy, but it was mine. The garden out back became my therapy. Tomatoes, zucchini, and roses. Oh, those roses were my pride and joy. Thursday evenings were reserved for book club with the ladies, and every single Sunday, like clockwork, Sophie would call. We'd talk for hours sometimes. She'd fill me in on office politics, her girlfriend's drama, what she was binge-watching on Netflix. I'd listen, only offering advice when she specifically asked for it, and I'd ship her care packages full of her favorite cookies and that fancy tea she loved. That was our normal, that was our rhythm. I thought nothing could shake it. Then, about half a year back, she brought up this name Tyler. Just casual at first, you know. A colleague from work. They'd grabbed coffee a couple times. "He's nice, Mama," she said. Real driven, ambitious type. I smiled into the phone, genuinely happy she'd met someone interesting. But something in the way she said it felt different. There was this guardedness in her voice that I'd never heard before. Like she was holding something back. When I suggested maybe I could come up and meet this Tyler fellow, she got all hesitant. "Maybe down the road, Mama. We're taking things real slow." Slow turned into fast quicker than a summer storm. 2 months in, they were shacking up together. 4 months later, she was wearing an engagement ring, and I still hadn't laid eyes on the man. Every time I proposed visiting, offered to take the train up, rent a hotel room, whatever worked for them, there was always some excuse waiting for me. Work was crazy busy. Tyler was traveling for business. Their apartment was being renovated. The excuses stacked up like cordwood. I kept telling myself not to worry about it. Young couples needed their space, right? I didn't want to be one of those mothers, you know the type. Clingy, overbearing, always butting in where they weren't wanted. But those excuses just kept on coming, and a little worm of worry started burrowing into my brain. When she finally texted me a photograph of the two of them together, I must have stared at it for 20 minutes straight. Tyler was good-looking in that polished corporate way some men have. Hair slicked back perfectly, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, flashing a smile that seemed, I don't know. Something about it didn't reach his eyes. He had his arm wrapped around Sophie, but she looked smaller in that picture, diminished somehow. The light in her eyes seemed dimmed. I pushed that thought right out of my head. I was being paranoid, reading into things that weren't there. She was happy. That's what mattered. That's all that should matter to a mother, right? The wedding got scheduled for June, a destination affair down in the Bahamas. Intimate, Sophie called it. Just close family and our dearest friends. I booked my flight that very day. Started hunting for the perfect mother of the bride dress. Even offered to chip in with the costs, the venue, the flowers, the band, whatever they needed. I wanted to help make her day special. Sophie accepted my offer. Of course she did. I was her mother. Why wouldn't she? That March, I transferred the first payment, $15,000 for the resort deposit. April brought another $12,000 for the catering. Come May, I sent $8,000 more for the photographer and all those floral arrangements. Sophie thanked me each time, but her messages had gotten shorter, more businesslike. Perfunctory is the word, I suppose. I told myself she was drowning in wedding stress. Planning these things could overwhelm anybody. Once it was over and done with, she'd go back to being my Sophie again. Then came that message. It was a Tuesday evening, and I was out in my garden. The roses needed deadheading, and I was elbow-deep in petals when my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Sophie. My heart did a little leap. She'd been so distant lately. Maybe she was finally ready to really talk. Really open up like we used to. I pulled off my gardening gloves and opened the message. Don't you dare come to my wedding. Tyler is against you. You're a stranger to us. I read those words 3 times, then 4, then 5. They didn't change. The letters stayed put, spelling out the same impossible thing. My hands started trembling so bad I nearly dropped the phone right into the dirt. Don't come to the wedding. Stranger. What in the world was she talking about? I'd given her everything. Raised her single-handedly. Put my own dreams on the back burner so hers could come true. Worked myself to the bone to give her opportunities I never had. And now I was a stranger? To my own daughter? I called her immediately. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Same thing. And again. Nothing. I fired off a text. Sophie, sweetheart, what's wrong? Please call me. We need to talk about this. No response. Not a word. I collapsed onto my garden bench, the roses completely forgotten now, and tried to make sense of what was happening. Had I done something wrong? Said something that offended her? I replayed our last conversation in my mind, just a quick chat about her final dress fitting. It had been pleasant, normal. There hadn't been any argument, no tension I could remember. Unless this wasn't really about me at all. Tyler. It had to be Tyler. From the moment she met that man, everything changed. The distance, the excuses, this coldness that had crept into her voice. He'd poisoned her against me somehow, turned my own flesh and blood into somebody I couldn't recognize. My shock began curdling into something harder, something sharper. I opened my banking app with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking. There they sat, all 3 transactions. $35,000. Money I'd been squirreling away for years. Money meant to celebrate her happiness, her future. Money she'd accepted while planning to humiliate me like this. I didn't hesitate. Not for 1 second. One by one, I canceled those checks. Each click felt like a tiny act of justice. If I was a stranger, well, strangers didn't bankroll weddings. Strangers didn't sacrifice everything for ungrateful children who couldn't even be bothered to treat them with basic human decency. I set my phone down on the bench and waited. Just sat there in the fading light, surrounded by my roses, and waited for the fallout. Sleep didn't come that night. How could it? I lay flat on my back in bed, staring up at the ceiling while 32 years of memories played like a movie in my head. Sophie's first wobbly steps across our tiny apartment. Her first day of kindergarten, wearing that little backpack that was almost bigger than she was. The time she fell off her bicycle and broke her arm, and I held her in the emergency room, promising her over and over that everything would be okay. Her high school graduation, that college acceptance letter, had it all been for nothing? Had I poured my entire life into raising this child only to end up here? By 3 in the morning, I'd migrated to the kitchen table with a notepad and pen. I needed to see it all laid out, needed to understand the full scope of what I'd lost. Not just the money, though good grief, that was devastating enough. $35,000 represented 2 solid years of extra shifts, vacations I never took, retirement I'd pushed back. I'd been planning a trip to Europe next year, Paris, Rome, all those places I'd dreamed about. That dream was dead now. But the money was nothing compared to the rest of it. I started making a list, writing it all down in neat columns: wedding payments, $35,000, Sophie's college tuition, my half, $42,000, her car, graduation present, $18,000, first apartment deposits and furniture, $8,000 medical insurance before her job kicked in, $15,000 birthday presents, Christmas gifts, care packages over the years. Impossible to calculate total monetary investment, over $118,000 time investment, immeasurable emotional investment, my entire heart, and what did I get in return? A text message telling me I was a stranger, that I wasn't welcome at my own daughter's wedding. The unfairness of it made my chest physically ache, made it hard to breathe. I'd done everything right. Maybe not perfect, Lord knows I made mistakes along the way, but I'd been loving, supportive, present. I never missed a single recital, soccer game, parent-teacher conference. Even when I was so exhausted I could barely stand, even when money was tighter than bark on a tree, I showed up. I was there. And this was my reward. This was what I got for 32 years of devotion. Around 5 in the morning, something shifted deep inside me. The grief started hardening into something else. Resolve, maybe. Determination. I wasn't going to just sit here drowning in self-pity and tears. I wasn't about to let Sophie and Tyler treat me like yesterday's garbage and walk away without consequences. They'd made their choice. Now they'd have to live with it. I needed a plan. A real one. First order of business: document everything. I took screenshots of Sophie's message, of our previous text conversations showing how warm and loving she'd been before Tyler appeared in the picture, of all the wedding payment confirmations. I created a folder on my computer and labeled it Evidence. Whatever happened next, I'd have proof, documentation, truth. Second, protect myself financially. I'd already canceled the checks, but what else was vulnerable? I pulled up my will and read through it carefully. Sophie was listed as my sole beneficiary. Everything I owned, the house, my savings, my retirement accounts, all of it was set to go to her. That needed to change, and it needed to change fast. I made a note to call my lawyer first thing Monday morning. Robert Chun. He'd handled my divorce, my will, even that nasty property dispute with a neighbor a few years back over a fence line. He'd know what to do. Third, understand what I was dealing with. Tyler was the problem. I was certain of it now. But who was he really? What kind of man convinced a woman to abandon her own mother? I opened my laptop and started digging. Tyler Morrison, Boston, marketing. Sophie had mentioned his last name once in passing. I found his LinkedIn profile pretty quickly. Impressive on the surface: Harvard MBA, corporate strategist, currently employed at some fancy consulting firm with a slick website and a client list full of Fortune 500 companies. But as I scrolled deeper, clicking through his connections and posts, something felt off, wrong. Every single photograph showed him in expensive clothes, designer labels, luxury restaurants with those tiny portions on huge plates, exotic vacation spots, Santorini, the Maldives, Dubai. For someone in their late 20s, he lived extraordinarily well. Too well, maybe. Was he actually wealthy? Or was he drowning in debt, living way beyond his means, projecting an image that didn't match reality? And if it was the latter, was that why he'd encourage Sophie to cut me off? To isolate her from anyone who might question his lifestyle, his influence, his intentions? The thought made me cold all over. I was still researching, still digging, when the sun started coming up. Golden light poured through my kitchen windows, illuminating my notepad covered in notes and questions and theories. I felt absolutely exhausted, wrung out like an old dish rag, but my mind was strangely clear. For the first time in 12 hours, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Then I heard a car door slamming outside. I glanced up. Through the window, I could see someone walking up my front path. My heart lurched hard in my chest. Sophie. She looked absolutely terrible. Eyes all puffy and swollen. Clothes wrinkled like she'd slept in them. No makeup, like she'd been crying all night long. She reached my front door and knocked. 3 sharp raps. I didn't move right away. Part of me, the mother part, the part that had kissed skinned knees and chased away nightmares, wanted to throw that door open immediately. Pull her into my arms. Tell her everything would be okay, that we'd figure this out together. But another part of me, the part that had emerged during those dark hours of the morning, stayed absolutely still. What was she doing here? Had she come to apologize? To explain? Or was this something else entirely? Something more calculated? I stood up slowly, walked to the door, and opened it. Sophie's face was a mess of tears and smeared mascara. "Mama," she choked out. "What did you do?" "I didn't invite her in." I stood right there in the doorway, arms crossed over my chest, and waited for her to continue. "You canceled the checks," Sophie said, her voice rising with each word. "The venue called Tyler this morning. They said the deposit bounced. The caterer, too. And the photographer. Everyone's calling, demanding payment. The wedding's in 3 weeks, Mama. 3 weeks." So that was it. She hadn't come to apologize or make things right. She'd come because the money disappeared. Because her perfect destination wedding was suddenly in jeopardy. "You told me not to come to your wedding," I said quietly, keeping my voice level. "You called me a stranger." "Strangers don't pay for weddings, Sophie." "I didn't mean it like that." She wiped at her eyes roughly, smearing the mascara even more. I was upset. "Tyler and I had a fight and Tyler told you to send that message, didn't he?" She hesitated. Just for a second, but that second told me everything I needed to know. "No, I mean, he has concerns about you. About your influence on our marriage." "My influence?" I almost laughed. Would've, if the situation wasn't so heartbreaking. I haven't even met the man, Sophie. How could I possibly influence anything? "That's not." She stopped, frustrated, grasping for words. "Look, this isn't about Tyler. This is about you trying to control me with money. You always do this. Whenever I don't do exactly what you want, you threaten to cut me off." The accusation hit like a physical slap. "Name one time," I said. "One single time I've ever done that." She opened her mouth, closed it, looked away. "You can't." because it never happened. I've given you everything, Sophie. Everything I had. And I never once asked for anything in return except basic respect and honesty. But apparently that's too much to ask. You're being dramatic. Am I? I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshot of her message, and held it up in front of her face. Read this out loud. Tell me I'm being dramatic. Sophie glanced at the screen and flinched like I'd struck her. Read it, I insisted. Mama, please, read it. Her jaw tightened. Don't you dare come to my wedding. Tyler is against you. You're a stranger to us. Her voice had dropped to barely a whisper by the end. Do angry people mean what they say, Sophie? Or do they just reveal what they've been thinking all along? Tears spilled down her cheeks. That's not fair. What's not fair is raising you single-handedly for 32 years and being treated like an inconvenience. What's not fair is paying $35,000 for a wedding I'm apparently not invited to. You are invited. I want you there. Tyler wants you there too. He just what? She bit her lip hard. He thinks you might make things difficult. Say something inappropriate. Embarrass us in front of his family. There it was. The truth. Finally out in the open. I've never embarrassed you in my entire life, I said. But I'm a divorced nurse from Connecticut. And Tyler's family is what? Boston old money? Harvard connections? Am I not polished enough for them? Not wealthy enough? Not good enough? It's not about that. Then what is it about? Explain it to me, because I genuinely don't understand how you went from loving your mother to calling her a stranger in 6 months flat. Sophie's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and glanced at the screen. I saw the name Tyler. Her whole body went tense, like a rabbit that just spotted a fox. You need to answer that? I asked. No, I mean, yes. She looked torn, trapped. The phone kept buzzing. Finally, she answered. Hey, I'm at Mama's. I'm handling it. I couldn't hear his response, but I watched Sophie's face transform. Watched it shift from sadness to fear to something that looked disturbingly like submission. She was nodding along, saying, I know and I understand and I'll try. When she hung up, she looked at me with something close to desperation in her eyes. Mama, please. Just reinstate the checks. We can talk about everything else after the wedding. I promise we'll work it all out. But right now, you need money. I need my wedding to happen. Do you know how humiliating this is? We already sent out invitations. Tyler's parents are flying in from London. I can't tell them it's canceled because my mother threw a tantrum. A tantrum? That's what she thought this was. Let me ask you something, I said. If I give you that money, will I be welcome at the wedding? She hesitated again. That damned hesitation that said more than words ever could. I'll talk to Tyler about it. That's not an answer, Sophie. He's my fiancé. I can't just ignore his feelings about this. But you can ignore mine. Sophie's face crumpled. Why are you doing this? Why are you ruining my life? I felt something inside me snap. Not in anger exactly, but in clarity. In understanding. This wasn't my daughter anymore. This was a stranger wearing my daughter's face, speaking someone else's words, living someone else's priorities and values. I'm not ruining your life, Sophie. I'm just not funding it anymore. There's a difference, so that's it? You're just done with me? No, I said softly. You were done with me. I'm just accepting it. I stepped back and closed the door. Through the wood, I heard her sob. Mama, Mama, please. She knocked. Then pounded. Really beat on that door. I'm sorry. Please don't do this. I walked away. Back to the kitchen. Back to my notepad and my plan and my coffee growing cold in its mug. My phone started ringing about 5 minutes later. Sophie. I didn't answer. She called 4 more times in quick succession. Then the texts started flooding in. Please pick up. I love you. We can fix this. Tyler didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. Please. I turned my phone on silent and made myself a fresh cup of tea. My hands were shaking something fierce, but my mind felt calm. Steady, resolved. Monday morning, I'd call Robert Chen, change my will. Set up a trust for any future grandchildren. They shouldn't suffer for their mother's choices. Make sure Sophie got nothing until she could prove she was standing on her own 2 feet, away from Tyler's influence. This was my point of no return. And you know what? I was ready for it. Monday morning arrived, and I was sitting in Robert Chen's office at precisely 9 o'clock. Robert had been my lawyer going on 15 years now. Handled my divorce when Sophie's father left. Drew up my will. Even dealt with that nasty property dispute with my neighbor a few years back over a fence line. He was thorough, discreet, and completely unflappable. Until I told him why I was there. You want to disinherit your daughter? He set down his pen and looked at me over his reading glasses. Margaret, that's a significant decision. Are you absolutely certain about this? Completely certain, I said, and showed him everything. The message from Sophie. The wedding checks. Screenshots of all our conversations. The whole ugly story laid bare. He read through it all carefully, his expression growing darker with each page. This is unfortunate, he said finally. Very unfortunate. But I have to ask, is this a heat-of-the-moment decision? Something you might regret once emotions settle? I've had 3 full days to think about it, Robert. My answer hasn't changed one bit. He nodded slowly, thoughtfully. All right then. Here's what I recommend. We create a revocable living trust. Your assets go into the trust, and you maintain complete control during your lifetime. Upon your death, the trust bypasses probate and distributes according to your wishes, which are. That's what we need to determine. He pulled out a legal pad. You could leave everything to charity. Set up a scholarship fund. Create a trust for future grandchildren with specific conditions attached. Or, he paused, watching me carefully. You could leave Sophie a symbolic amount. $1, for example. That proves you didn't forget her, which makes the will much harder to contest in court. I considered this carefully. The trust for grandchildren, I said. I like that idea. If Sophie has children someday, they shouldn't suffer for her choices. But they don't get anything until they're 25 years old, and Sophie has absolutely no control over the money. Smart, Robert said, making notes. And the rest? Split it between the American Cancer Society and a scholarship fund at Sophie's college. Ironic, isn't it? The education I paid for will end up helping other people's children. Robert drafted the documents that very afternoon. I signed them on Wednesday. Just like that, Sophie went from inheriting everything to inheriting nothing. My life's work would go to strangers who might actually appreciate it. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I'd been researching Tyler Morrison for 3 days straight by that point. What I found made my blood run cold. He wasn't just ambitious or driven, or any of those positive words Sophie had used to describe him. He was drowning. Drowning in debt and bad decisions. Credit card debt in the tens of thousands. A car repossessed 2 years ago. 3 different addresses in the past 2 years, always moving, always running. And most damning of all, he'd been engaged before. Twice, actually. Both times to women from wealthy families. Both engagements ended abruptly when the women's families started asking questions and digging into his background. Tyler wasn't marrying Sophie because he loved her. He was marrying her because he thought she came with a trust fund. Because he thought I was loaded and she'd inherit it all eventually. The realization made me physically sick. My daughter was being used, manipulated, played like a fiddle by a professional con artist. I was sitting at my kitchen table, compiling all this evidence into a neat folder, when someone started pounding on my front door. Not knocking, pounding. Like they were trying to break it down. I looked through the window and saw Tyler's BMW parked in my driveway, all sleek and expensive and probably leased. Here we go, I thought. Deep breath. You can do this. I opened the door to find both of them standing there. Sophie looked miserable, like she'd been crying for 3 days straight. Tyler looked furious. Absolutely livid. What the hell do you think you're doing? Tyler didn't even bother with pleasantries or pretense. He pushed right past me into my house like he owned the place. Excuse me? I blocked Sophie from following. You don't get to come into my home uninvited. Your home? Tyler spun around, his face flushed red. The home Sophie's supposed to inherit? I don't think so, lady. We need to talk about your little stunt. Tyler, please, Sophie started, but he cut her off with a sharp gesture. No, your mother needs to understand something. He stepped closer to me, trying to use his height to intimidate me, trying to make me feel small and scared. You're destroying your daughter's life out of pure spite. You're a bitter, controlling woman who can't stand to see Sophie happy. You've built your entire identity around being her mother, and now that she doesn't need you anymore, you're trying to destroy everything. I didn't move. Didn't back down an inch. Interesting theory. Here's another one. You're a con artist who saw an easy mark and isolated her from anyone who might expose you for what you really are. His eyes widened just slightly. Just enough. I've been doing research, Tyler. Want to know what I found? 3 previous addresses. 2 broken engagements. And debt up to your eyeballs. You don't love Sophie. You love the idea of what she could give you. What I could give you. That's insane, is it? I pulled out my phone, opened my evidence folder. Then explain why Sophie never met your family until after you got engaged. Explain why you pushed for a destination wedding that would keep people away. Explain why my invitation got revoked the second I started asking questions. Sophie was staring at him now. Really staring. Tyler, what's she talking about? Nothing. She's making things up to turn you against me. Am I? I held up my phone, showing the screenshots and documents. Here's your credit report, Tyler, public record. Here's an article about your first engagement. Canceled 3 weeks before the wedding. Sound familiar? Sophie looked at the screen. Her face went absolutely white. Those are, Tyler started. Sophie, don't listen to her. I can explain. You said you'd never been engaged before. Sophie's voice was barely a whisper. You said I was your first serious relationship. Those were different. Those women weren't what? Rich enough? Gullible enough? Tyler's mask slipped. For just one moment, I saw pure rage flash across his face. Then he smoothed it over, tried to recover, reached for Sophie's hand. Let's go, baby. Your mother's toxic. This is exactly why I said she shouldn't come to the wedding. But Sophie pulled her hand away. You said you wanted her there. You said you understood that family was important to me. I lied, okay? I lied to make you happy. Obviously, I didn't want her there. Look at what she's doing to us. The truth, finally, straight from his mouth. Sophie looked between us, tears streaming down her face like rivers. Then she turned and ran to the car. Tyler jabbed a finger at me, and his voice dropped low and threatening. This isn't over. You've turned her against me, but I'll fix it. And when I do, you'll be the one left with nothing. You'll never meet your grandchildren. You'll die alone wondering what could have been. He stormed out. I watched through the window as he and Sophie argued in the car. She was crying. He was gesturing angrily, probably spinning the whole thing, trying to explain it all away. Finally, the BM Neo roared out of my driveway. I closed the door and leaned against it, shaking from head to toe. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might actually be having a heart attack. That had been intense. More intense than anything I'd prepared myself for. Tyler was dangerous. Not physically, maybe, but emotionally, psychologically, the way he'd tried to twist reality, gaslight both of us. The casual cruelty in his parting threat about grandchildren. I needed a break. Needed to get away from all this before I completely fell apart. I called my friend Patricia. Told her I needed a few days away from everything. She invited me to her cabin in the Berkshires immediately. Come now, she said. Stay as long as you want. You sound like you need it. I packed a bag and left within the hour. For 3 full days, I didn't check my phone. I hiked through the mountains. Read books I'd been meaning to get to for months. Sat by the lake watching the water and letting my nervous system recover from the confrontation. When I finally turned my phone back on, there were 43 missed calls and 72 text messages waiting for me. The war, it seemed, was just beginning. The messages were like a master class in manipulation. I read through them all at Patricia's cabin, sitting on the porch with my morning coffee while birds sang in the trees. From Tyler, Margaret, I apologize for my behavior. I was defensive and said things I didn't mean. Can we talk like adults? From Sophie, Mama, I love you. Please give Tyler another chance. He's under so much stress with the wedding. From Tyler again, I understand your concerns. What if we postpone the wedding? Gave everyone time to get to know each other properly. From Sophie, Tyler wants to take you to dinner. Just the 3 of us? Please say yes. Then the messages got more desperate. Mama, answer your phone. Where are you? I'm worried about you. Please call me back. Mama, please. I read through them all, sipping my coffee while morning light filtered through the pine trees. Patricia sat across from me, her sharp eyes missing nothing. They're scared, she observed. That's good. Or they're regrouping, planning their next move, maybe both. She refilled my mug. What are you going to do? Nothing. Let them sweat for a while. Patricia smiled. I taught you well. She had, actually. Patricia had taught me not to back down when I knew I was right. To trust my instincts. To protect myself. The question is, she continued, what do they actually want? If Tyler knows you're onto him, why hasn't he just cut his losses and moved on to the next mark? I'd been wondering the exact same thing. Sophie must not believe me yet. Or she's choosing not to. And as long as she's still with him, there's a chance he can salvage this whole situation. So he needs to either win you over completely or turn Sophie against you permanently. Right, and given how badly that confrontation went, I guess he's trying the first approach now. Hence all the apologies and dinner invitations. Patricia nodded thoughtfully. Be careful, Maggie. Men like that are dangerous when they're cornered. They'll do anything to protect themselves. I drove home that afternoon, feeling fortified by rest and Patricia's wisdom. My house felt different when I walked through the door. Smaller somehow, but also more solidly mine. More truly my own space. I'd lived here for 20 years. Raised Sophie here. Made 1,000 memories in these rooms. I wasn't about to be driven out by some con artist and his manipulation tactics. I sat down at my kitchen table and composed a single message to Sophie. I love you. I always will. But I won't have a relationship with Tyler that's based on lies and manipulation. When you're ready to hear the truth and have an honest conversation, I'm here. Until then, I need space. Her response came within minutes. We need to talk, please. Not yet, I typed back. When? When you're ready to listen. Really listen. 3 hours later, a flower delivery arrived at my door. 2 dozen roses, the expensive kind from that fancy florist in town. The card read, from Tyler and Sophie. We're sorry. Please give us a chance. I gave them to my neighbor, Mrs. Henderson. She was delighted. The next day, a gift basket appeared on my porch. Gourmet chocolates, fancy wine, imported cheeses. The card said, thinking of you. Love, Sophie. I donated the whole thing to the church charity sale. On the 3rd day, Tyler himself showed up. Alone this time. I watched through the window as he knocked politely, waited patiently, then left an envelope tucked into my doorframe. Inside was a check for $35,000 and a handwritten note. Margaret, I know we got off on the wrong foot. I love your daughter more than anything in this world, and I hate that I've come between you two. Please accept this reimbursement for the wedding expenses. Consider it an investment in our fresh start. I'd like to take you to lunch this week, my treat. Anywhere you'd like. Let me prove I'm worthy of Sophie, Tyler. I stared at that check for a long, long time. $35,000. The exact amount I'd paid. He was trying to buy me off. Make himself look generous, responsible. Erase his debts with Sophie by creating a debt with me. By making me feel obligated to him. It was clever. I'd give him that much. I tore the check in half. Then in quarters. Then into tiny pieces. I put all the pieces in an envelope and mailed them back to Tyler's apartment with a note of my own. I can't be bought. Margaret, that weekend I went to my book club for the first time in 3 weeks. The ladies there, Sarah, Linda, Joan, Patricia, they'd been my friends for years. They all knew something was wrong. I'd been distant, canceling meetings, barely responding to texts. I told them everything. The whole messy story from start to finish. When I was done, Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand tight. You're doing the right thing, honey. Am I? I asked. I keep wondering if I'm being too harsh. If maybe I should just let it go. Be at the wedding. Try to build some kind of relationship with Tyler for Sophie's sake. Absolutely not, Linda said firmly. She'd been through a brutal divorce herself. She knew manipulation when she saw it. That man is using your daughter like a meal ticket. If you back down now, you're validating everything he's doing. But what if I lose Sophie completely? The words came out smaller than I intended. Joan, the oldest of us at 74, spoke up quietly. Then you lose her. But you don't lose yourself. Don't compromise your integrity for someone who's already decided you're disposable. Her words hit hard, but they rang true somewhere deep inside me. Patricia poured me more wine. Besides, you haven't lost her yet. She's still texting, still trying to reach you. Part of her knows something's wrong with this whole situation. The question, Sarah added, is whether she figure it out before the wedding or after. After is going to be worse, I said quietly. If she marries him, then you'll be there to pick up the pieces when it all falls apart, Patricia said. But that's future Margaret's problem. Present Margaret needs to hold the line. I left that meeting feeling stronger than I had in days. These women had my back. They saw through Tyler's charm and Sophie's desperation. They reminded me I wasn't crazy or cruel or wrong. That night, Sophie called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mama, her voice was small and scared. I'm here, sweetheart. Did you get Tyler's check? I did. I sent it back. Silence on the line. Then, why? We were trying to make things right. Sophie, you can't buy forgiveness. That's not how any of this works. Then what do you want from me? She was crying now, her voice breaking. I've apologized. Tyler's apologized. We've sent gifts, reached out, tried everything we can think of. I want you to wake up. What? I want you to see who he really is. What he's doing to you. To us. To your whole life. He loves me, Mama. Does he? Or does he love what you represent? The access. The potential money. The respectability. She hung up on me. Just ended the call mid-sentence. I sat there in the dark, phone in hand, and wondered if I'd ever get my real daughter back. The one who used to tell me everything. The one who trusted my judgment. The one who knew, deep down, that I'd never steer her wrong. They showed up on a Sunday morning. I was in my garden, same place I'd been 4 weeks ago when this nightmare started, except now my roses were in full bloom, and I was a completely different woman, stronger, harder, more certain of myself. I heard the car before I saw it. Sophie's Honda, not Tyler's BMW. Strategic choice, I thought. Less aggressive, less threatening. They walked around to the back gate together, both dressed carefully. Sophie wore a sundress I'd bought her last Christmas. Tyler was in casual khakis and a button-down shirt. They looked like something out of a magazine. Young couple on a beautiful day, coming to reconcile with Mom. Margaret, Tyler called out, his voice warm and friendly. We hoped we'd find you here. Your roses are absolutely gorgeous. I straightened up slowly, pulling off my gardening gloves. Sophie, Tyler, can we talk, Mama? Sophie asked, her voice nervous. Please, just for a few minutes? I could have said no. Probably should have. But curiosity got the better of me. All right. We sat at my patio table, the same one where Sophie and I used to have breakfast on summer mornings when she was little. Tyler positioned himself at the head of the table. Interesting choice, I noted. Claiming authority in my space. Margaret, I want to start by saying I've done a lot of soul-searching, Tyler began, his voice measured and earnest. You were absolutely right to question my intentions. If I were in your shoes, I'd have done the exact same thing. I said nothing. Just waited. I haven't been fully honest with Sophie. Or with you. He reached for Sophie's hand. She let him take it, but she looked uncomfortable. I have had financial troubles in the past. And yes, I have been engaged before. But those situations were complicated. Very complicated. Complicated how? I asked. The women I was involved with, their families were controlling, overbearing. They tried to run our relationships, dictate every single decision. When I pushed back, tried to maintain some independence, Things fell apart. He looked directly at me, his expression vulnerable. I see now that I was projecting those experiences onto you. I assumed you'd be the same way, manipulative, controlling. I was trying to protect Sophie from something that wasn't even real, from my own baggage. It was a good performance, I had to admit. Vulnerable, self-aware, apologetic. If I didn't know better, I might have believed every word. And the debt? I asked. From my business. I tried to start a consulting firm right out of business school. It failed spectacularly, and I've been digging myself out ever since. But I'm almost there. Another year and I'll be completely clear. He squeezed Sophie's hand. I should have told you from the beginning, baby. I was ashamed. Didn't want you to think less of me. Sophie was watching him with hope in her eyes. She wanted so desperately to believe this. To believe that everything was okay. That I was wrong. So you're not marrying Sophie for her money? I asked bluntly. Sophie doesn't have money, Tyler said, genuine confusion crossing his face. She works in marketing. We're both just regular people trying to build a life together. Ah, I said. You thought I had money. You thought Sophie would inherit a fortune. Tyler's expression flickered for just a second. No, that never even crossed my mind. Really? Because you seemed mighty interested in my house the other day. In what Sophie was supposed to inherit. I was upset. I said things I didn't mean. Like Sophie said things she didn't mean when she called me a stranger. Sophie flinched. Let me guess what happens next, I interrupted. Tyler apologizes beautifully. You two promise to include me in the wedding. We all hug and cry and everything goes back to normal. Except the wedding's in 2 weeks and you still need money. So at some point in this conversation, you're going to ask me to reinstate those checks. Sophie's face went bright red. That's not what this is about, Mama, isn't it? We're trying to fix our relationship. Her voice cracked. Why can't you see that? Why do you have to make everything about money? Because money is what brought you here. Not love. Not family. Money. Tyler's charming smile finally disappeared. You know what, Margaret? Sophie was right about you. You are controlling. You use your money as a weapon to manipulate people. I use my money how I choose. That's called autonomy. It's called being a narcissist. He stood up abruptly, his facade crumbling completely. Sophie has bent over backward, trying to appease you. She's apologized, compromised, begged for your approval. And you sit there like some queen on a throne, expecting everyone to bow down and kiss your feet. Tyler, stop it, Sophie started, but he cut her off. No, she needs to hear this. He turned back to me, and now I could see the real Tyler, the one hiding behind all that charm. You're a bitter, lonely woman who can't stand that your daughter found happiness without you. You've built your entire identity around being her mother, and now that she doesn't need you anymore, you're trying to destroy her life. Get out of my house, I said quietly. Gladly. This place is depressing anyway. No wonder Sophie couldn't wait to leave. Sophie was crying now. Tyler, please stop. Mama, please. Sophie, make a choice, I said, keeping my voice steady. Him or me, right now, choose. Her eyes went wide. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, choose. She looked between us, tears streaming down her face like rivers. Then she stood up slowly and walked to Tyler's side. Of course she did. I love you, Mama, she whispered. But you're impossible. You've always been impossible. Nothing I do is ever good enough for you. That's not true? Yes, it is. When I got into college, You said I should have aimed for better schools. When I got my job, you said I was settling for less than I deserved. When I met Tyler, you immediately started criticizing him before you even knew him. You just can't be happy for me. The accusations stung because they held a tiny grain of truth, twisted and distorted. I had worried she was settling. I had wanted her to aim high, but never out of cruelty. Only concern. Only love. I wanted you to have the best life possible, I said. No, you wanted me to live the life you think is best. There's a difference, Mama. Tyler put his arm around her shoulders, possessive and triumphant. Come on, baby. Your mother's made her decision. We need to make ours. They started walking toward the gate. Then Tyler turned back, and his smile was pure poison. By the way, Margaret, the wedding's still happening. We found another way to pay for it. Turns out my family is more supportive than yours ever was. He paused for effect. Sophie and I are going to be very happy together. And when we have children, they'll never know their grandmother was too selfish to be part of their lives. The threat hung in the air. Grandchildren. The future. Everything I'd never have access to if I didn't back down right now. I watched them leave. Watch Sophie get into the car without looking back even once. Watch them drive away down my street. Then I went inside, locked all the doors, and stood in my kitchen shaking like a leaf in a storm. Fear crawled up my spine. Real, genuine fear. What if I was wrong about all of this? What if I was destroying my relationship with Sophie over nothing but pride and stubbornness? What if I never got to meet my grandchildren? But then I remembered Tyler's face when his mask slipped. The cruelty. The calculation. The cold manipulation. I wasn't wrong. Sophie was making a terrible mistake. But I couldn't save her from it. She had to save herself. All I could do was be here, ready and waiting, when she finally woke up. I sat down at my kitchen table, pulled out my phone, and texted Patricia. They came. It got ugly. I held firm. Her response came immediately. Proud of you. You're stronger than you think. I stared at those words until my hands stopped shaking. Then I got up and went back to my roses. They needed tending, and tending them made me feel human again. The wedding was supposed to happen on Saturday, June 15th, at some luxury resort down in the Bahamas. I knew the exact date and time because the invitation was still stuck to my refrigerator with a magnet. Beautiful cardstock. Elegant calligraphy. A complete mockery of everything that had fallen apart. I thought I'd spend that day trying not to think about it. Maybe work extra hard in the garden. Maybe visit Patricia at her cabin. Anything to avoid imagining Sophie in her white dress. Tyler's ring sliding onto her finger, my absence like a gaping wound in all the family photos. But Friday afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Is this Margaret? Margaret Reeves? Yes. Who's this? My name is Caroline Winters. You don't know me, but I think we need to talk. It's about Tyler Morrison. My heart started pounding. I'm listening. I saw your daughter's wedding announcement online. When I saw Tyler's name attached to it, She paused, her voice shaking. I almost threw up. He's marrying someone else. Again. He's doing it again. Tell me everything, I said. The story Carolyn told was chillingly familiar. She'd met Tyler at a charity fundraiser in Boston 3 years ago. He was charming, ambitious, swept her completely off her feet. They were engaged within 6 months. Wedding planned for the Bahamas. Intimate ceremony. Beautiful and expensive. Then 2 weeks before they were supposed to leave, Caroline's father had a massive stroke. Suddenly, her inheritance was uncertain. Her father might need long-term care, which would deplete the family fortune. Tyler became distant almost overnight, critical. He picked fights over nothing. Finally, he called off the wedding just 3 days before they were supposed to fly out, claiming Carolyn was too emotionally unstable to be a good wife. She found out later he'd already started dating someone else, another woman from a wealthy family. "It's a pattern," Carolyn said, her voice tight with anger. "I've tracked down 2 other women since then. Same story every single time. He finds someone with money or family wealth, gets engaged, then disappears when he realizes the payday isn't coming or gets delayed. Why are you calling me now?" I asked. "Because I've been watching your daughter's social media. I can see what he's doing. The isolation, the rushed timeline, and I notice you're not in any of their recent photos together. That means he's cutting you out. Same thing he did with my family. He tried. We had a falling out." "Good," Carolyn said firmly. "That means Sophie might still have a chance. She might still be reachable." She paused. "I have proof. Emails, text messages, documentation of everything that happened. I've been building a file in case he ever tried this scam again. Would you want to see it?" "Absolutely." She emailed everything within the hour. Pages and pages of evidence. Screenshots of Tyler's messages to Carolyn where he specifically mentioned targeting wealthy circles for networking. Financial records showing how he'd tried to access Caroline's trust fund before they were even married. Testimonies from 2 other ex-fiancés, both telling eerily similar stories. It was damning, undeniable, proof of everything I'd suspected. "What do you want to do with this?" I asked when I called her back. "I want to stop him," Carolyn said simply. "I don't know your daughter, Margaret, but nobody deserves what he did to me. If there's any chance of reaching her before that wedding happens, the wedding's tomorrow. In the Bahamas, I know." She hesitated. "I was thinking of going, confronting him, but I can't do it alone. He'd just spin it as me being a crazy, vindictive ex-girlfriend." An idea formed in my mind. A wild, possibly insane idea. What if we went together, both of us? Silence on the line. "Then, you'd do that? For my daughter?" "Yes." We booked flights that night. Red-eyes to Nassau, arriving early Saturday morning. It was reckless, expensive, probably completely futile. Sophie might not listen. Tyler might have us thrown out by security. But I had to try. I had to give it one last shot. We landed at 8 in the morning. The wedding ceremony was scheduled for 4 in the afternoon. Carolyn rented a car, and we drove to the resort, this pristine, expensive paradise that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. "How do we even get in?" Carolyn asked as we sat in the parking lot, both of us looking at the resort entrance. "We're not on any guest list. We walk in like we belong. We're guests at a wedding. They won't know which one until they check, and if they check, by then we'll already be inside." It worked, surprisingly enough. The resort was huge, hosting multiple weddings that weekend. We slipped in with another group of guests, found the ceremony location, a beach pavilion with white chairs and elaborate flower arrangements that probably cost a fortune. Guests were already starting to arrive. I recognized some of Sophie's college friends. Tyler's parents, older and wealthy-looking, exactly what I'd expected. And there, near the front in a private suite, getting ready, Sophie. My heart clenched tight. She looked absolutely beautiful. and so heartbreakingly young. When do we do this? Carolyn whispered. During the ceremony. When they ask if anyone objects, that's dramatic. This whole thing is dramatic. We waited in the very back as guests filed in and took their seats. I watched Sophie walk down the aisle on the arm of her college mentor. She'd asked him to give her away since her father was long gone and I wasn't there. It should have been me walking her down that aisle. Tyler waited at the altar, looking handsome and confident, playing his role to perfection. The officiant began. Standard ceremony language. Love, commitment, building a future together. Then, if anyone has any reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace. I stood up. So did Carolyn. Sophie's face went completely white. Mama? Sophie, don't marry him, I said, my voice carrying across the beach. He's done this before. Multiple times. He's a con artist. Tyler's confidence faltered. This is insane. I'm Carolyn Winters, Carolyn called out, stepping into the aisle. I was engaged to Tyler 3 years ago. He left me the moment my family's money became unavailable. Just like he'll leave Sophie. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Tyler's parents looked absolutely shocked. Sophie stood frozen at the altar. We have proof, I continued, walking down the aisle. Carolyn followed. Emails, financial records, testimonies from other women. He's been running this scam for years, targeting women from wealthy families. You're both crazy?